The LA Kings are still struggling to put a complete 60-minute game together. And I've got some bad news for those of you wanting the Kings to make a coaching change, at least for now. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years. Also one of the co-hosts of Locked On NHL Game Night, a nightly podcast and YouTube show wrapping up the night in the NHL, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. The LA Kings played game number 6 of this NHL season, hosting the only remaining undefeated team left in the NHL, the 4-0 Carolina Hurricanes. We knew this one would be a struggle, and it was especially that when the Kings found themselves down 2 goals in the first few minutes of this game. They allowed the first goal in 12 seconds. The Kings were down 3-0, but they didn't quit. They clawed their way back against an undefeated team. They tied it up at 3-3, only to fall 4-3 in overtime. So the big takeaway from this game, I've got a couple of them. Takeaway number 1, the Kings are not quitting on Jim Hiller. Now, I know that there is a vocal part of the Kings fan base that wants Jim Hiller to be fired, and this start to the season certainly isn't quieting down anyone who wants that to happen. However, the team is not quitting on their coach, and that is one thing that will get a coach fired faster than just about anything. Even the biggest Jim Hiller critics have to admit the team is not quitting on him. We've seen the Kings battle back against Vegas and Pittsburgh and now Carolina. Now, don't get me wrong. The results still very much matter. And ultimately, yes, it will be the results that could eventually cause the Kings to make a coaching change. But if you're looking for that to happen sometime immediately, I don't see that happening because they're not quitting on the coach. And sorry for those of you that want to see a coaching change. I choose to see that as a good thing. Now, it might be a silver lining type of good thing, but the Kings aren't quitting. Or perhaps better said, the Kings are fighting back. And that is a good thing. If you pay to go to that game against Carolina, certainly when you leave Crypto.com Arena, you're not satisfied with the result. There certainly is execution issues, which we'll get into. But I don't know that you could say you're leaving that game with the Kings not showing you some fight. And ultimately, that's not enough. It's not just enough to go down swinging. All I'm saying is right now, with the start of this season, looking for something to be at least positive about, I think that is something to be positive about. So, again, I believe that is a pretty big reason why I don't anticipate seeing the Kings making any kind of coaching change soon. Now, it could happen eventually because, like I said, ultimately it is the record that counts. It's not just showing fight and battling back. You're supposed to do that. But again, I believe we're at a point in the season, the way things have started, that we're looking for those kinds of things to be positive, and I think that is something to be positive about. All right, takeaway number 2. The Kings can't put a complete game together, and that is at least partially on the coaching and the coaching staff. Jim Hiller is ultimately responsible for the performance of the team, and the record is now 1-3-2. And it seems it's something different for every game. Get off to a bad start like it was against Carolina. Take too many penalties in another game. The power play doesn't score. Whatever. It's something every game. And so far, the Kings haven't been good without having the bad. Now, the good news is, again, they've shown the ability to bounce back. The bad news is they put themselves in positions to have to battle back. However, I do think this game against Carolina is actually something the Kings can build off of, even though it was a loss. No, the Kings should not feel good about the result of this. They should feel like if we didn't absolutely stink for the first opening 4 minutes of the game, we could have gotten 2 points, should have gotten 2 points out of this game. But again, the way things are going right now, we're looking for signs that things can be better. I do think this is a game the Kings can move towards being better than worse. I'll say that. But I also acknowledge there is certainly work to be done. Let's look at the game stats in this one. Kings again lose 4-3 in overtime. Shots on goal favored Carolina 40-28. That's actually not as bad as you might think. Carolina is one of those teams that throws pucks on net, and they are consistently one of the teams in the league, one of the top teams in the league that has, shots on goal. 28 shots on goal for LA is actually not a bad total against that Carolina team. Special teams actually was in favor of the Kings in this one. We'll get into the penalties taken in a minute, but Carolina 0 for 3 on the power play. It did include a 2-man advantage, while the Kings were 1 for 1 on their only power play opportunity, and they scored very quickly. Faceoffs were not good for LA, and we'll talk about part of the reason for that. 62.2% for Carolina, while the Kings were just 37.8%. Obviously, they miss Anze Kopitar with that. Hits favored the Kings 29-18. Block shots were completely even. Each team had 20. So this game boiled down to the opening 4 minutes. The Kings were awful on defense. You talk about allowing scoring chances from high danger areas. Textbook what not to do. Blown assignments, perhaps miscommunication. Opening goal just 12 seconds in. Puck skated around the back of the net. A pass through the crease to a player sitting all alone at the back door. Now, Quentin Byfield was between the player who passed the puck and the player who scored. He cannot allow that pass to get through him. Kevin Fiala also has to recognize that the defenseman, Mikey Anderson, was tied up along the boards behind the play, so he has to be aware to pick up the man on the back post and have his teammates back in that situation. He didn't do it. The other goal not long after was even worse. Samuel Hellenius is in front of the net as the center. He is defending. He's defending against the Carolina player. He leaves the front of the net to play the puck in the corner, and he leaves his man wide open in the slot. He scores easily. That's just dumb defense and bad decision-making. That can't happen, especially against a good team. Samuel Hellenius is a young player. He'll learn and all that, but you can't do that. That's basic hockey 101. The third goal, Andrew Kuzmenko turns it over, and to make matters worse, he doesn't get back on defense. It leads to a 2-on-0 breakaway, and Carolina scores. Now, it wasn't great that Drew Doughty and Brian Dumoulin both were skating towards the net when this happened, but Kuzmenko has to recognize where the defense is, where his teammates are, not make a backhand pass that gets broken up and leads the other way, and then, of course, he doesn't get back on defense. All 3 goals the Kings allowed in regulation were a direct result of poor decisions and bad execution. And I know everyone's been pointing fingers at Brian Dumoulin and Cody Ceci. This is way bigger than those guys. Losing Vladislav Gavrikov, who, as good as he was last season, should not result in what we are seeing team defense-wise by the Kings. They should still be a solid defensive team, and right now they're not. And I don't know what the reason is for that. But we're seeing just bad decision and bad execution and in areas of the game which have normally been a strength of the Kings. And again, I believe it is much more than just Brian Dumoulin or Cody Ceci not being as good as they need to be. This is a team-wide situation. As far as the defensive minutes in this one, not a fan of this. Brian Dumoulin was the leading time on ice performer for the Kings, 25 minutes, 24 seconds. Drew Doughty was second, which is shocking, 24 minutes, 35 seconds. And he had Mikey Anderson, 21 minutes, 10 seconds. Cody Ceci, 18 minutes, 31 seconds. Joel Edmondson, 17 minutes and 7 seconds. And down at the very bottom is Brant Clark, 14 minutes and 36 seconds against the Carolina Hurricanes. That is a season low for him. And when you're down 3-0, well, 2-0 almost immediately, and then 3-0, he should be getting more minutes, not less. So that is difficult to swallow. I do not like seeing that at all. Real quick, I do want to break down the penalties. The Kings were called for 3 penalties in this game, which is about what you can accept. More than 3 is entering bad territory, but it's also what kind of penalties you're taking. Adrian Kemme took a slashing call in the first period. That was not a good decision on his part. Kevin Fiala took a dumb holding penalty in the second period when he grabbed the guy's jersey. It's so easy for the referees to see. You should never grab someone's jersey. And then Warren Fogle right afterwards take a tripping call, got his stick between the player's legs. And so that led to a 2-man advantage. Fortunately, it bled over between the end of the second and the start of the third. That kind of helped to break it up. And the Kings did do a good job killing it off. And there were no penalties in the third period or overtime called on the Kings. So still not good penalties to take. The number of penalties taken wasn't terrible, but the 2-man advantage, having those penalties taken back to back like that was bad. The Kings were lucky to be able to kill it off. So we'll give them credit for killing it off, but still some bad penalties taken in this one. We're going to talk about also, it wasn't called a penalty, but it was a controversial call by the referees. We'll get to that coming up. Also, the Alex Laferriere experiment at center was not the right move. We'll talk about that next. You're on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats the in-arena experience, but let's get real. Getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump up right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It is your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay, no hidden fees at checkout. And what you see is exactly the view you're going to get when you buy your tickets because of their in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. They even can find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, let's get into some of the individuals in this 4-3 overtime loss to the Hurricanes. The Kings lineup in this one to start the game. We saw Alex Laferriere at center with Adrian Kemme and Andrei Kuzmenko. Alex Turcotte was playing on the fourth line. On the wing was Samuel Hellenius and Jeff Malott. And Anton Forsberg was in net once again. And Phoenix Copley once again, the backup. Let us begin with Anton Forsberg. I thought he was very, very good in this game. He absolutely deserved a better fate. As soft as the 3 goals he allowed against Pittsburgh were in the previous game, his 3 goals allowed against Carolina were all because his teammates absolutely hung him out to dry. The overtime game winner was on a broken play. Forsberg made a lot of quality saves in this one. He was one of the bright spots for the Kings. He even had a nifty pass with his glove to keep a play alive, and it led to a Kings attack and a shot on goal. He ended up allowing 3 goals on 40 shots, but again, all 3 of those goals, he was not supported by his teammates. It was great to see Anton Forsberg bounce back after a bad game with a very good game. It is unfortunate that he did not get a win in this one because I thought if you were picking the best player of the game for the Kings, it was probably him. Alex Laferriere started at center, did not finish the game at center. I questioned this move. It didn't make sense to me. I was intrigued to see what he could do at center. But I would, like I said, I would have had Quentin Byfield on the top line, Alex Turcotte centering the second line. Laferriere should either be on the second line, on the wing, or on the fourth line at the wing. But Jim Hiller decided to put Laferriere in a tough spot, playing a position that maybe someday he'll play, but he has no experience to speak of playing that position. And I get that they're trying to find answers and they're shaking things up, but putting a guy in that position when he hasn't played at this level in that position, it's a pretty tough decision, and it's a pretty tough position to put a player in. And I think ultimately it's a bad decision. So thankfully, Jim Miller and the coaching staff realized during the game, this ain't working. We have got to change this. And we saw somewhat what I thought we should have saw. And that was Quentin Byfield centering the top line with Adrian Kempe. However, I know that they were not wanting to break up the Byfield-Kevin Fiala combo. And so they had Byfield with Kempe and Fiala on the top line. We also saw Alex Turcotte with Alex Laferriere and Andrei Kuzmenko on the second line. The Danault line was unchanged, and Joel Armio's moved back to the fourth line with Hellenius and Malat. Laferriere was terrible in the faceoff circle. He only won 2 of 10 faceoffs taken. Now, to be fair, Turcotte wasn't much better when they made the switch. He lost all 4 faceoffs he took. But you knew it was bad when, to start the second period, Alex Laferriere was out there with Kempe and Kuzmenko, and Adrian Kempe took the faceoff and not Laferriere. But again, I don't put this on Laferriere. He shouldn't have been put in that position to begin with. To me, that's on the coaching staff. I'm not blaming him. As coaches, you have to put your players in the best position to have success. I don't think they did that with Alex Laferriere in this game. Trevor Moore, I really like the way he's been playing. He's been flying around the ice this season. He's been a bright spot, I think, in this slow start. Had a goal in this one, his second of the season. Also had another goal wiped away due to a goalie interference call on Warren Fogle. We're going to talk about it a little bit more later. Moore also was put on the number 1 power play unit along with Kempe, Fiala, Q, and Kuzmenko. I think he's earned that spot. I hope he gets more time there as Andrei Kopitar is out of the lineup. Quentin Byfield had a great pass on a power play to Kuzmenko to help the Kings score their second goal. Sometimes the assist is better than the finish, and that was the case in this one. Adrian Kempe had a shot from straight away at the point, partially deflected by a Carolina player. It goes off to the side of the net to Q. He quickly and accurately put the puck right on Andrei Kuzmenko's stick at the back door for a tap-in goal. Byfield also came very close to tying up the game with a nice wraparound attempt in the third period when he broke in on net with speed. So I thought Quentin Byfield did some very good things in this one. Kevin Fiala tied it up with a nice goal in the third period. He did take a dumb penalty, but Fiala also has a goal in 4 of the Kings' 6 games now on the season. He scored after Jim Hiller went to that Q Kevin Kempe line. Adrian Kempe and Fiala crisscross just inside the Carolina zone. Kempe then smartly goes to the net, making space for Fiala and giving him time to unleash a great wrist shot into the net. As for Adrian Kempe, finished with 2 assists, the only Kings player with a multi-point game. That said, he was also not credited with a shot on goal. So the 2 assists were great, but you need one of your top goal scorers to at least get a few shots on goal in this one. Warren Fogle did take a bad tripping penalty. There was also another play we'll talk about involving him in a minute, but he did a lot of dirty work in this game that I hope we see more from. He was in front of the net on multiple occasions, screening the goaltender. The Kings right now, they're not necessarily struggling to score goals, but they do need to get, we talked about it a lot last year, right? Blue collar goals for the Kings, going to the net, shots on goal, crashing for rebounds, and also screening the goaltender and being in front of him. I thought Warren Fogle did that very well in this game. All right, we need to talk about a key moment in this game, that win against the Kings. The Kings were down 3-1 in the second period. Trevor Moore puts a shot from the point on net. Warren Fogle's in front of the net, as we talked about. Now, there was contact with the Carolina goalie. It was ruled no goal due to goalie interference. Now, because it was incidental contact, no penalty was called on Warren Fogle, but the goal was not allowed. Now, Jim Hiller could have challenged this call. He did not. You wonder when his next coaching challenge might be because of what happened in the playoffs. I don't believe we've had one so far this season. If I'm missing it, then that's on me. But if that played a factor in this, I don't know. I actually would not have challenged it either, because the call on the ice was no goal. And typically it has to be very, very clear that the call on the ice was wrong for them to overturn it. Here's what happened on the play. Warren Fogle is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. He's in front of the net, not in the crease, screening the goalie. Now he's on the edge of the crease, but he's in perfect position with his skates. The goalie is at the extreme edge of the crease, in the crease as well. The goalie's feet were in the crease, but he's right there on the line. Both of their bodies are kind of right on the line where the crease starts and stops, if you want to call it that. So Fogle is in front of the goalie, and the goalie's trying to look around him, and a shot's coming in. And as it is, the goaltender drops down in the butterfly position on his knees. And when he does that, the goalie makes contact with Fogle's shoulder. It caused his goalie mask to be knocked up. He then threw his head back like he had been shot and falls down. Jim Fox called it embellishing, which it probably was. But the bottom line was Fogle was not in the crease and he did not initiate contact. So to me, that goal should have counted. Now, do I think the Kings would have lost that challenge? I do. Because again, the call on the ice was no goal, and the NHL also likes to err on the side of protecting goalies. And there was contact, but it was the goaltender initiating the contact. So that call didn't go the Kings' way, which is the way the season has kind of gone so far. There's not a lot going the Kings' way right now. But I do believe Warren Fogle was doing exactly what he should have been doing. And the goalie making contact with him, that's on the goalie. So I really think that goal should have counted, but I also understand why they didn't challenge it, because I don't think the Kings would have won that challenge. But I do think it was the wrong call. All right. What are the Kings going to do with the lineup going forward? And the Kings are heading out on a tough road trip. We will talk about that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It is quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel to place your first $5 bet. All right, the Kings are now heading out on the road for 5 straight games: St. Louis, Dallas, Nashville, Chicago, and San Jose. If you haven't really been paying attention to the league, Dallas is clearly the best team of the group there that they're going to face. St. Louis and Nashville are okay. Chicago has actually been playing very, very competitive games right now, so they are not going to be a pushover, while San Jose stinks. They're the only team yet to win a game in the NHL this season. So is it an easier stretch of games than what the Kings have faced so far? Yes, but you know what? Right now, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the Kings are playing. It matters how the Kings are playing. They've got to clean up the mistakes. They've got to make better decisions. They've got to stop hurting themselves with penalties. We're 6 games into the season, and we are still waiting for the LA Kings to play a complete game. I am hoping we see that soon. As for what the lineup is going to be, great question. I would assume we will not see Alex Laferriere at center again. I would guess we will see the Byfield, Kempe, Fiala line. I have no doubt the Danault line is going to stay intact, and that really leaves Turcotte with Laferriere and Kuzmenko. The fourth line, I believe, will be Hellenius, Armia, and Malat. I do like how Joel Armia has been playing, but I think he gives you what he's been giving you, whether he's on the second line or the fourth line, so I would prefer to see him on the fourth line and Laferriere on the second line. We think we will see Darcy Kemper and Corey Perry on this upcoming road trip. Exactly when, I do not know, but they will both be traveling with the team, and it looks like Kemper will be back soon. Maybe they save him for the Dallas game. We'll see, especially after Anton Forsberg played such a great game in the game against Carolina. As for Corey Perry and where he slots into the lineup, I assume it's got to be on the fourth line with Hellenius and Armia, and that would bring Jeff Malat out of the lineup, but we'll see how it goes. We are anticipating seeing the LA Kings debut of Corey Perry here on this road trip, and anticipating the Kings getting their number one goalie back as well. So that should help things somewhat. Finally, I did want to mention the Ontario Reign lost their last game. It was Friday night by a score of 2-0 against the Henderson Silver Knights. It was a home game. Eric Portillo took the loss, allowing 2 goals on 25 shots. So the Reign are now 1-1 on the season so far. Their next game is Sunday at home against the Colorado Eagles. Face-off is set for 3 p.m. Pacific time if you want to go out and watch some hockey in Ontario. As for the Kings, they will next be in action this coming Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time in St. Louis. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, our next show will be Monday night. As always, if you want to send an email into the show for any reason, including our weekly fan feedback show, the email address is lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments. If you're watching on YouTube in the comments section, we greatly appreciate that. If you would stay connected with the show on social media, that would be cool. X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, we are at Locked On LA Kings. And if you're a fan of the show, please tell your Kings friends about the podcast and the YouTube show if they are not aware of it. Word of mouth is a great way to get news about the show out there, and I would appreciate that. And if you want some extra Kings content, fan chats, exclusive reaction to breaking news, pregame reports, send me an email, lakingsextra@gmail.com. We'll get you the info on that. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We will talk to you next time. And as always, go Kings, go.